Hello, everyone. Sorry I had been gone, but I was able to go spend time with my son in Dora, Alabama. Got to spend time with my grandkids as well. I haven't seen them in a long time. So I had that opportunity, and I got back yesterday. I will start off by reading that Bible scripture, Matthew 18, verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. There's a copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, scholarship, and research. Excuse me. I have it scrolling at the bottom of the page so that y'all can read it as well. All right. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So I hope everyone's doing good today. Um, I saw this and knew that it needed reporting. There's so much going on. This case of this guy, the sicko, Benjamin Taylor, he raped and murdered his girlfriend's 10-month-old daughter. Go ahead, and you all know that I don't just say this stuff. You all know that I show documentation about this. That says, well, thanks to News 7 Miami, this is reported by Associated Press, March 15, 2019. Here is the bad guy who did it. This is him right here, the sicko. Sicko. This undated photo provided by West Virginia Regional Jail and Correctional Facility Authority shares Benjamin Taylor of Cottageville, West Virginia. Taylor is charged with murder in October 5th? Wow, that's my birthday. 2016. Death of a 10-month-old baby who authorities say he also sexually assaulted. This was in Ripley, West Virginia. The lead investigator in the trial of a man accused of killing his girlfriend's 10-month-old baby testified that he has no doubt the man raped and murdered the girl. The Charleston Gazette Mail reports Jackson County Sheriff's Chief Deputy Ross Mellinger said Thursday that Benjamin Taylor had blood on his torso and a wet spot on his pants when officers were called to the home in 2016. Hello, everyone that's here. The woman testified that she found him shirtless with his pants unbuttoned and leaning over her naked injured daughter. The infant died days later. Bellinger testified that Taylor had been looking for pornography online, told officers he has episodes when he blacks out, and had noticed the blood on the baby. Of course, you just notice your own stuff. You don't notice what you did to her. All right, and here is Benjamin Taylor sentenced to life in prison for rape and the murder of Emily. Let me get rid of this at the bottom down there. Get rid of this also. All right. Benjamin Taylor has been sentenced to life in prison without mercy for the rape and murder of 10-month-old Emmaleigh Barringer. At the hearing, Emmaleig's grandmother gave a victim impact statement. She talked about how the 10-month-old's life was cut short showed Emily's handprint and footprint, said how the memories are all they have left, and concluded by asking the judge to show no mercy. The prosecutor talked about Taylor's lack of remorse. The defense asked the judge to consider who Taylor was for the first 30 years of his life. Taylor chose not to speak. The judge proclaimed he had never seen anything so horrible. For the charge of first degree murder, he was sentenced to life in prison without mercy. And here's another article. In Jackson County, let's see, it's Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. Jeff Jenkins, March 19th, 2019. Giving credit where credit is due. Jackson County man convicted in Emmaleigh Barringer's death. A Jackson County jury took 2 hours Tuesday to convict a Cottageville man on all counts in connection with the October 2016 rape and death of a 10-month-old Emmaleigh Barringer. Benjamin Taylor, 33, sat with his head in his hands in a Ripley courtroom after it was announced the jury had a verdict. He stood with his attorney as the verdict was read. The 12-member panel returned guilty verdicts on charges of first degree murder, death of a child by child abuse, and sexual assault by a guardian. The jury decided Taylor should receive no mercy when he's sentenced. He won't have a chance for parole. Taylor cried after the verdict was read. Taylor raped Barringer back in October 2016 in the Fairplain apartment he shared with his mother, Amanda Atkins, who was his girlfriend at the time. Taylor testified Monday he couldn't remember much about that night because he'd been drinking for most of the day and blacked out. Drinking around a kid, that's bad. Anyway, a 10-month-old, you got to be able to respond in case of any kind of emergency. During her closing argument Tuesday, Jackson County prosecutor Katie Franklin called the claim a convenient explanation. In his closing argument, Taylor's attorney, Tim Rosinski, told the jury DNA evidence didn't link his client to the rape and it could have been someone else. He said science doesn't lie. During the trial's first day, Atkins testified she found Taylor over her daughter. There were lots of blood. Evidence showed Emily had been sexually assaulted. She died a few days after the attack. In April 2017, Governor Jim Justice signed a bill into law, Emily's Law, which doubles the penalties for parents, guardians, or custodians convicted in the death of a child. The bill became law after Taylor was charged. So I'm going to show you the little girl. This is little Emily. She died too young. That's what that monster took away. This precious little child. Emily's Law officially in effect. This is by WTAP, WSAZ, Phyllis Smith. Emily's Law is named after Emmaleigh Barringer. It went into effect in West Virginia Thursday. It doubles the penalty for a parent, guardian, or other person convicted of child abuse causing death. Instead of 10 to 40 years in prison, the offender could get 20 to 80 years. Emily was 10 months old when she was reportedly sexually assaulted by her mother's then boyfriend, Benjamin Taylor. She later died in the hospital from her injuries in October. For those that contemplate on such actions, West Virginia is not the place to do it because we will bring down immediate, swift, harsh justice upon those who perpetrate acts of abuse on our most precious assets, our children, said Mitch Carmichael, a West Virginia State Senate President. Taylor will appear in court for a pretrial hearing Thursday, July the 13th, which we already seen on. And there is a bill that would increase the penalty for child abuse and neglect ahead for Governor Justice's desk for approval. You know, that had been the update. So it did it happened, okay? And they said, according to our sister station, Emmaleigh law was introduced Tuesday by Senate President Mitch Carmichael. To pass a bill would add a new section to the current law to double penalties for various child abuse offenses. And we read this other part, so I've got something else very important to share with y'all. So this guy went and filed wanting to appeal the case. After what he did, he tried to appeal the case. He did not remember what he had done because he was drunk, but still, that is not any excuse for his heinous actions. So this was filed January the 18th, 2023, this year. State of West Virginia, plaintiff below respondent. There's the case number and stuff. Benjamin R. Taylor, defendant below petitioner. Here's a memorandum decision. Petitioner Benjamin R. Taylor appeals the order of the Circuit Court of Jackson County entered on February the 12th, 2020, resentencing him to reset the time frame for direct appeal. We determined that oral argument is unnecessary and that a memorandum decision affirming the Circuit Court's order is appropriate. Mr. Taylor is serving a sentence of imprisonment of life without mercy for his conviction of first-degree murder, a consecutive sentence of 40 years for his conviction of death of a child by child abuse, and a consecutive sentence of 10 to 20 years for his conviction of sexual abuse by a guardian, custodian, or person in a position of trust. These convictions follow Mr. Taylor's arrest, indictment, and jury trial for the death of the 10-month-old daughter of his girlfriend, who discovered Mr. Taylor with the child's naked body in the basement of her home just before 5 a.m. one morning in October of 2016. The child's mother took the child from Mr. Taylor and called 911. Paramedics took the child to a nearby hospital where staff identified injuries that included skull fractures, deep scalp hemorrhages, so he's been hitting her in the head, abusing her terribly, evidence of smothering, a perennial tear, anal tears, and blunt force trauma to the neck, head, chest, abdomen, buttocks, pelvis, and extremities. The child died 2 days later. According to Mr. Taylor's own trial testimony, he suffered a lengthy blackout beginning several hours before he was found with the child after they spent drinking beer and smoking marijuana. Like I said, that is still no excuse. There is no excuse for this kind of heinous actions. Just because you blacked out does not mean that it's okay and that you should just be swept under the rug for what you did to her. You are a responsible adult. You should know better than doing these type of behaviors like drinking and smoking marijuana if you know you're supposed to help take care of a child. You go and do these sick things. You're looking at child porno on the internet too, and then you black out and you decide to go in there and do this to a child, your girlfriend's daughter? How dare you? Though he had visitors earlier in the evening, he acknowledged that the guest left his girlfriend's home after a brief stay. Soon after, at approximately 9:30 p.m., Mr. Taylor's girlfriend and her other older children went to their bedrooms in the upstairs part of the home. Mr. Taylor went to the basement alone to do laundry, and he continued to drink beer. He testified he does not remember anything after blacking out, but acknowledged that he used his mobile phone throughout the night. He further acknowledged he used his phone to view pornography a little more than an hour before his girlfriend found him. He further testified that he woke up in the basement for 30 to 45 minutes, of 40, 30 to 45 seconds, sorry, in the early morning and saw the child gurgling in front of him, prompted him to administer the child 2 breaths in CPR fashion. Finally, he testified. And at that point, the child's mother is like close to me or coming down the stairs. I can't really remember. And I pulled the blanket back and I see blood. And I just jumped up and I tell the child's mother, I didn't molest her. No, you raped her. Well, when the deputy sheriff arrived, he found the basement door leading outside the home locked. Only Mr. Taylor's girlfriend had a key to that door. On appeal, Mr. Taylor assigns error to the circuit court's treatment of 3 pretrial issues. No assignment of error attacks the foundation of reliability of the testimony that is summarized above. In reviewing the assignments of error before us, we are mindful that trial courts' evidentiary rulings, as well as its application of the rules of evidence, are subject to review under an abuse of discretion standard. That's what SYL Part 4, State versus Reduced Selkies. I'm going to not read all that, but y'all see it. We note additional standards below were applicable. We begin with Mr. Taylor's first assignment of error, in which he argues that the circuit court erred in denying his motion for a change of venue on the ground that the child's death and his indictment were so widely known that he could not have had a fair trial in Jackson County. We review the circuit court's denial for clear abuse of discretion, and that's going according to that case. In doing so, we consider whether petitioner demonstrated good cause for a change of venue at the time he made his application, State versus Dirt. We agree that Mr. Taylor we agree with Mr. Taylor that the shocking nature of the crimes with which he was charged and the circumstances surrounding these crimes were likely to draw a great deal of attention in a community. Mr. Taylor, however, heavily relies on his conjecture and fails to present evidence of actual excuse me, prejudicial notoriety surrounding his trial. In his best effort to support his claim, Taylor invites us to peruse for ourselves approximately 1,800 pages of juror questionnaires to draw the conclusion that public sentiment disfavored him. Sorry, you all. I'm having a lot of difficulty today, but please bear with me. But he stopped short of the brief must contain an argument clearly exhibiting the points of fact and law presented, the standard of review applicable in citing the authorities must contain appropriate citations. Anyway, that's what it's basically saying right there. So we go back. Then he said, Supreme Court may disregard errors that are not adequately supported by specific references to the record on appeal. We turn to Mr. Taylor's third and final assignment of error. Here he argues that the circuit court erred in its pretrial ruling regarding the testimony by DNA experts. This dispute began with petitioners filing on a motion to suppress and enjoin, in which he sought to exclude 16 DNA samples based on their failure to meet the stochastic threshold, a base established by analysts to establish the no dropout allele renders a sample unreliable. Soon after, the state filed its own motion to suppress DNA evidence obtained from a swab of the victim's vaginal area. Vaginals. At the motions hearing, the parties presented an agreed order resolving through exclusion all DNA issues except for the one raised by the state's motion concerning the vaginal swab sample. The state's forensic analyst testified that she used a test kit designed to isolate male DNA from mixed samples, but such testing could return low-level DNA extract. Vagina swab did, in fact, yield a low level of DNA, and the analyst was thus required, under the West Virginia State Police, found laboratories procedures to perform two applications, yielding 8 concordant loci to establish reliability. Though the first application, which tended to exclude Mr. Taylor as a DNA contributor, showed 10 results as 9 locations. The second application showed only 3 results. Because the results did not meet the requirement that the two applications produce 8 concordant results, the state's forensic analysts concluded that the results were not reliable and Mr. Taylor could not be excluded as a DNA contributor to the vaginal swab sample. Mr. Taylor's expert witness testified, on the other hand, that the analyst's first application was itself reliable because the stochastic threshold applied at only one locus point, and enough loci meeting the threshold remaining to consider the sample reliable. Therefore, he opined, it was not necessary to replicate the results in a second amplification. The state's motion would effectively preclude Mr. Taylor from introducing evidence of the first application, which, standing alone, suggested that Mr. Taylor was not a DNA contributor to the vaginal swab. Upon receiving the testimony at the motions hearing, the circuit court determined that neither the state nor Mr. Taylor offered any persuasive supporting evidence of their expert's position relating to the importance of the DNA sample meeting the stochastic threshold. It denied the state's motion to suppress the evidence, but qualified that, in the event such evidence is introduced, the state may motion the court to be permitted to introduce evidence of the previously agreed to suppress results of testing samples which were below the stochastic threshold as raised in Mr. Taylor's earlier motion to suppress it. Emphasis supplied. Mr. Taylor argues that the circuit court's ruling placed him in a catch-22 situation that ultimately led him to forego the presentation of his own expert's testimony that the first application excluded him as a contributor. Mr. Taylor, his argument is problematic in that it attacks the circuit court's order permitting the very testimony that he planned to introduce. The court's ruling was in no way adverse to Mr. Taylor. He essentially asked that we reverse his convictions because the circuit court entered an order compelling him to make a decision about his presentation of evidence. Mr. Taylor offers no authority supporting the position that the circuit court exceeded its authority in suggesting that it would entertain a future motion under specific circumstances. We therefore find that the circuit court did not abuse its discretion in denying the state's motion to suppress or the phrasing that the court employed in denying the motion. For the foregoing reasons, we affirm. So they did not. To me, how I read this, I would say that he's still in deep water because he has no evidence to support that he did not do it. He was right there. The door, they said, to the basement was unlocked. Girlfriend having a key. Oh, I pray that too. Pray that too, that castration will be punishment one day for these sick buttos after they chopped a couple of them off. Exactly. Exactly. Good point there, Mechanic Mama. Thank you. And this is horrific, and he don't want to have to serve any jail time. That's what it is. He was shocked when the verdict came back about finding him guilty about this, and then knowing he's going to be sentenced. course, he don't remember. He was drunk and he was doing drugs. You know, it's lethargic. But you're on the phone and you're watching child porn, and you got the baby down there with you, and there's blood on your torso. It's on you. You got a damp part on your pants. They found you guilty. You didn't try to save the girl. I think you was actually trying to even cover the evidence even more. You had a blanket. And it, like you said, she had traumatic brain injury, skull fractures. She ended up dying a couple of days later after this heinous attack. I don't think he even deserves life in prison. I think he really deserves the death penalty. I don't think they need to keep him in jail. That girl didn't have a chance to live. And I hope to God he never messed with any of her other kids. I pray for these kids. I pray for their mom. I know how it hurts. So thank you so much for coming, Mechanic Mom. Hope you had a good Mother's Day. And I just wanted to get on here and tell the story on this when I had seen it. And I said, oh, this guy's still trying to do appeals. He still wants out of this. But like I said, it says he can never get out of jail. No mercy. Show no mercy on him. He didn't show this little girl any mercy. This is a sicko. Him loving to watch child pornography is another big red flag there. I doubt the mother would have known that he liked watching child porno. If she knew he wanted to he liked child porno, she probably would have got rid of his butt in a heartbeat. At least I would hope so. I would hope she didn't know. But if she did know, I would just as much blame her for allowing somebody that loved pedophilia into her home. So I hope and pray she did. But she lost her daughter. We need to continue to pray. And at least they got Emily's Law now. And hopefully they can pass on Emily's Law throughout different states as well. We really need a law like this all over the United States. Thank you so much, and you have a blessed day.